Hello, welcome to this very special presentation titled the All-New ProfitLocker Pro, How to Lock in Profits on Your Trades. My name is Steve Chappell, the Director of Trading Systems Development here at VectorVest, and boy, do I have a great one for you this week. Yes, we're going to be talking about this latest iteration of ProfitLocker Pro, which I'll remind you is a patent-pending stop loss that is simply blowing the doors off the competition out there, and now it's even better than before. So let's get in there and take a closer look. Guys, it's now a game changer, and I'm going to explain why. Okay, now it will analyze your stocks for you and decide precisely what stop template to use based on both the fundamental and technical attributes of each individual stock that you trade. So you can potentially be running 9 different templates, say simultaneously on a basket of 10 to 20 stocks, depending on the fundamental and technical makeup of the stocks that you're trading in that portfolio. In most cases, you end up trading maybe a couple to a few because many of the stock selection searches, of course, that you use in VectorVest are really pinpointing a certain segment of stocks out of the database, right? But up to 9 can be running simultaneously, and that's really the genius of this new release, latest release of ProfitLocker Pro. All right, so a quick reminder, certainly for anybody that's new, just kind of some basics on ProfitLocker and how the stop loss works. Okay, we're looking at a graphic here, and the black line running in an absolute straight line up the page there is price movement. And of course, we're assuming linear price movement to best show you the integrity of the curvature of the stop loss that's being deployed, and thereby allowing us to, really showcase the 5 different elements that the stop loss encompasses. Do realize this: if you deploy a profit locker on a very speculative type position, you might end up with more of just a pure tightening trailing stop. If you run one on a very secure, very fundamentally sound and technically sound chart, you can end up with something that looks more like a loosening trailing stop. And you'll see that on positions as we get a little bit deeper into this presentation. But these are the 5 parts that make it up, and they all play a role in each of the stocks, whether you end up with a tightening or a loosening or somewhere in between, more with like what we see here. Okay. And so again, black line is linear price appreciation in the future. Mission number 1, the first element, the first objective is to get profitable as quickly as possible, but as logically as possible. And so ProfitLocker Pro is going to assign an initial trailing stop percentage to get you to profitability. Okay. Mission number 2, or objective number 2, however you'd like to frame that out, element number 2, pick a sensible target to shoot for. And ProfitLocker Pro is going to do the work for you when we recommend at least the initial template. It's going to help you. This is one of the biggest challenges I think a lot of people are confronted with is, gee whiz, okay, 50% sounds good, but why am I picking that, or 100% or whatever that number might be? Well, based upon both the fundamentals and technicals, ProfitLocker Pro will now assign a percentage that you're shooting for, okay? And that is an important decision to make. Another sign of a very good trader is to know where your risk is and where you're trying to go, realizing that we can just keep climbing up the page in a perfect world scenario. Okay, now number 3, we want to stay profitable. Once profitability is achieved, we can afford to loosen out the stop in some cases to accommodate some new volatility that might leak into that instrument. So, in many cases, you'll see that. You'll see, a flattening of the curvature of the stop loss, and that's to accommodate volatility on some of those swing trade, type positions, okay, that are good for days to weeks kind of a deal. And that's an important element because how many times have we seen it? We assign like a 10% trailing stop, and we're off to a good start. It pulls back, and we end up with a small loss or just a very small gain, only to see the stock continue to shoot up the page. So we're trying to allow you to hang in there as long as possible, as long as it makes sense, essentially. And that's really at break even in most cases. Right now, here's what it looks like in the app with Danaher. And so we do have the app out in both on the internet as a web page and also on the mobile application. And we can also find it in VectorVest 7. We will be looking at both the web application and VectorVest 7 today. We also do have good video tutorials on these along with the mobile app, ProfitLocker Pro on mobile. Okay, so that's important to understand. Now, back to Danaher in the case study. We're looking at, back on July of 2020 in this case. On number 1 down here, that's where we have our initial trailing stop, right? And we can see that as price rose up the page here, so too did ProfitLocker Pro. As price broke sideways to down, ProfitLocker Pro holds the line if higher prices are not achieved. And then as we get closer to the target, let's see what happens next. That's the tightening point. So the closer we get towards the target we're shooting for, oftentimes, that stop loss is really going to get some larger and larger adjustments the closer and closer we get to that target. So it really begins to tighten down and lock in and preserve as much of the target percentage that we're shooting for. And that's why it gets its name, Profit Locker. We're going to lock those profits in, right? And so here we can see with Danaher, as it really got aggressively more towards the target here, which was number 2 at 38%, this thing really started to ratchet up faster and faster the closer we got, locking in virtually some of the best prices offered before, it went on a big decline. And that's the idea. We want to lock those profits in, and look, not all your trades are going to work out and look like the textbook edition here, right? But ProfitLocker has been proven over literally hundreds of millions of simulations now that we've run, okay, to outperform any traditional choice you might go, like with a trailing stop or a gain loss, these types of things. Not that you're going to get 70% more ROI, it's just a 70% better choice. It tends to lead to profitability far more often than any of those traditional choices. And so you usually end up, kind of somewhere in between is what I've seen in the bulk of about 600 trades, now on my own in the Jockey Club, for example, okay? All right, so with that, let's move on. Then you're going to hit what's called the end trail or the ending trail. And, this is a wonderful thing because, how many times have we seen it like with a gain loss, stop loss, where we get all the way to the gain and we close it out and the stock goes up another 30, 40, 50, or even higher percentage, right? And so the idea here is if that stock just keeps clicking along and just keeps going up, minute after minute, day after day, week after week, month after month, there's no sense locking down a high price because it keeps climbing. And so there's going to be a final trailing stop. And that threshold can be very tight or it can be very wide, just depending on, again, how fundamentally sound and how picture perfect price was when trade inception occurred, okay? When trade inception occurred. And so the better looking the chart, the better the fundamentals, the wider that's going to tend to be there. And I believe 25%, is a number that you might come across fairly often. So don't, it's going to give it plenty of room to keep running if it's a really strong stock. If it's a super aggressive stock, maybe a meme stock, like an AMC, you're probably going to end up with a 1%, and so you're really going to try to lock those profits in accordingly. All right, so we'll have some examples of that. Don't worry. Just wanted to get the main points of the stop loss across again. Now, here's Danaher, and of course, it just didn't keep clicking. And so ProfitLocker Pro, it locked those profits in. Now, here's an example of ProfitLocker Pro and what it looks like on the web. We are going to go to the website here in just a sec, but I wanted to get your feet wet before we do, okay? So right here at the top, we can see we're looking at Old Dominion Freight, ODFL. It's currently 267.51 when we were looking at it. That will update throughout the day. You'll also have a working stop price. We can see that's clocking in at 207.34. We're in transportation truck. There's no earnings date on the horizon at the time, but there is a dividend coming on 6/16. You'll also see where you can manipulate the date, so you can go back and do some testing. You can also bring it all the way to current and see what the future projection would look like at trade inception. When we come into the graphic, you've got a white area here. This is existing stock price performance for the last few months. Then you have this gray shaded area to the right. This is the model into the future. Now, this little dotted line here that says model price, that doesn't mean we think Old Dominion Freight's just going to keep going up day after day after day. What it's telling you is, as these prices are achieved, where is my stop going to be? Where is my stop going to be? So when you hover your cursor in the platform, over this model price, it'll give you a stop price in relation to that price. Right? And of course, we've got a price scaling out here to the right. We can look at being short or long, and there are templates on the left. One of them at the top is going to be the recommended template based on those fundamental and technical attributes that we've quickly discussed earlier. Below, you have the current stop that's being analyzed, and that's where you can select from the 9 different templates that are available. Okay, and so let's get into the ProfitLocker Pro app now that you've had a brief tour and really show you around. All right, so here I am at Google, and to get there, all I've got to do is go to app.profitlockerpro.com. Also remember, if I didn't mention earlier, we are in the App Store for both Android and Apple. And so once you're a ProfitLocker Pro subscriber, you would have access to those applications and can view it on your mobile device that way, whichever way is going to end up being easier for you. Okay. Once I get there, here's a nice welcome. I'm going to go ahead and just put in some credentials for us. And then I can simply click on Login Now. So that would be your VectorVest credentials, your login, okay? Your username and your password. The first screen that you're going to come across says, all right, here's 2 things to think about right out of the gate. Do I want some more training, learn more about it? Over on the left, analyze your holdings. So we can import from broker. That's a big one. Once you figure this is something you're going to want to do and deploy on your core holdings, you can bring them into the product. It will assign the ProfitLocker recommended stops to those securities, and even give you notifications where you can take a sell recommendation from ProfitLocker Pro and enter it with your broker. Okay, so it'll give you an alert. It's not going to make any trades for you. Under Enter Manually, if you just kind of want to test drive it, or maybe we don't have one of the brokers from the list that you currently use, you can just enter them, and that way it's a little painful the first time through, but that way you can still get those alerts and timely exits on your positions. What I'm going to do is come up to the top right, and I think the place that most people will end up starting is right here with stock lookup. Okay, so if I click on the little magnifying glass, I could then say either pick from some of the popular or recent stocks, right? Or I could type in my own. When I type in my own, say IBM, it'll then produce a ProfitLocker Pro for us. Now, we like to produce it with a little bit of history just so you can see some of the efficacy of the stop loss and how it relates to the current stock price movement over about the last month. You'll also notice at the top we've got the symbol, the name, current price, the stop price that would be deployed right now, assuming a purchase on 6/25. You'll see the industry, the earnings date, and any dividend date that are on the horizon. Okay. You'll also then be able to come over here and move the stop loss around. So if I want to see where would I put my stop now on IBM, I can come down here and I can see my stop would be right here at 133.65. I can see what happens if IBM does as expected and climbs towards my target of what would now be 50%. How does the stop loss move? So, when I get right here to 160, that stop loss has moved up nicely to 150.97. If I keep going, as I get here to about 200, it's now at 183.66, and you can see it's tightening in down there below. And then as I get up here to 220, my stop is clocking in at about 208 there. You can also click this arrow. It gives you a little bit more usage of the screen. The recommended stop for IBM right now would be swing trade tight. Okay. You can also then come down to the current stop, and I can say, well, all right, but I'm going to override that. I'm going to forget about those hundreds of millions of simulations you guys did. I'm going to do short-term tight. What does that look like? And then you end up with more of that tightening trail, and you're only shooting for a much smaller gain. But it is clocking in pretty nicely towards that prior swing high. So in some cases that can tie in to the way that you like to trade. Okay. And then of course you could choose from any of them. You'll see that there's 3 varieties of short term. You also have 3 swing trade labeled stops and 3 longer term stops. So there's certainly one there that's going to fit you as an individual. And they're all very, very good, okay, at what they do. But the recommended one at the current time, based upon fundamentals of the stock, but also look at that wild price action, is swing trade tight. So hopefully that's starting to make sense to you. At the bottom here, we can take off the future model if we like. That way we get a little bit more history of the stock price, and we can see this is a stock that tends to have some gyration to it, right? We can also come up here to the top right and even analyze a short position if we wanted to do that. Okay, so you have the ability to look long or short on a particular security. All right, so that walks you around here a good little bit. You can come right back up and look up another stock. You can also manipulate the date. And so the final piece, right, is we can bring those stocks in. We can set up alerts so that when stocks that we're actually trading in our portfolio receive a ProfitLocker Pro sell signal, we'll get them, right? And so the first thing to do, of course, is put in by carrier and also by number. Make sure I got the right amount of digits there. And, you know, it'll send you a text message if an alert develops throughout the day. Also, as far as emails go, you can get an email alert sent to you. I can show you what one of those looks like, I believe, now. Once you get them set in there, here's an example. Sell AMC. It crossed below its current stop price of $68.98. Boy, that would have been a good price to sell it, wouldn't it? In retirement. All right, so where did that come from? You know, where did that alert come from? All right, let's go back over here then into the app. And what I'm going to do is actually log into my account now. So I can come up here, log out of this one, and just put in my VectorVest credentials. That would be whatever the normal way you log into VectorVest 7 if you're a VectorVest subscriber. You know, that's your credentials that you log in with. Oh, and there it is. It's right at the top of my list there. You see this red exclamation point? You can see that I've added a number of stocks. The portfolio Schwab Retirement is up 75.87. Current value or what have you. All the positions that are in there are down here below. You can see how well you're diversified. Looks like we got a little work to do. We're potentially a little underweight on leisure depending on what your view is. Okay, so you can just kind of hover your cursor around there. You can see what the sectors look like. You can even get some snapshot chart performance here, you know, that kind of thing. Okay. When we get to the positions here below, we can sort by gain for the day. We can sort by net gain. Okay. We can sort by symbol or even sort by company name. All right, now. When we do that, we can also say, I want to see my alerts first. That's why the top never really changed there. Okay, so if I go back, net gain, we can see the highest net gain is certainly Moderna, clocking it at 109. And it hasn't even hit its stop yet. It's up 109% and has not hit its stop loss. Okay, AMC is up only 46, but has hit its stop loss. And that stop loss came in at 68.99, and it's currently tracking 32. Okay, so we can see how big of a blunder we've made sometimes. EXPD, you know, is up 28, up a little bit today. Gives you a little spark chart, and you can always click on any one of these. Okay, now look, EXPD has made a nice little move here. And if for whatever reason, let's say the market really starts to aggressively turn over, I may not be really willing to give all that up, you know, so what we can do is come back over here to the left again, and I can start tampering with this and still use a lot of wisdom that's baked into the tool. I'm still going to be using the fundamental and technically driven data, right? So I can say, all right, now I think I want to change that up here a little bit. We're on long-term loose. What if I did long-term tight? You know, and I can see that moved it up a little bit. Well, maybe we need to go more swing trade moderate. And now you can see it's even moving a little bit faster, right? We can also see the targets change a bit as we go through here. What if I did short-term loose? Woo! All right, maybe I'm already out of this little bugger if I'm more of a trader. You know, if you're short-term, you're obviously a trader. You're not, you know, even swing in that case, and that would have been a nice gain there, yeah. And gotten out of harm's way as price broke down. We got incredibly close to that target of 37%, right? So you can really get in here and go to work, you know. You can really get in there and go to work. I'm going to go back to long-term loose because that's the recommended stop loss for this stock. Now up here at the top, once you have a bunch of positions in there, you'll also see these arrows. You know, you're going to have the symbol, the name, the price, the stop price, the gain for the day, also the net gain, the cost per share, when you purchased it, how many shares, what the value is, you know, all those things. And then as I go through, we can look and see how ProfitLocker Pro is performing on each of these positions, okay? And so we can just kind of climb through here, and boy, look at Moderna. Man, Moderna has been on such a nice move here. It seems to be breaking down a little bit, but look how nicely this is locked in already about, well, $100 worth of profit there or so, right? And then if we go to the next one here, I really want to show that AMC chart, man. That's going to blow your mind. So we got a bunch of steady plotters there. What happens if I get lucky and, you know, hit the jackpot on one of these meme stocks? You know, can ProfitLocker Pro help me there? Well, look at this. You know, boy, look how this was a swing trade tight. And you might say, well, that's going to be too tight. No. It would have got us out at $68.99. I think the high price on that day was $72.68 or 62. See that? My goodness. And here we've let all that slip away. So, you know, it's really, really, really potentially going to do some dramatic overhauling of how you trade the market if you allow it to do its job. It's super good. You know, is it perfect? Nothing's perfect, right? It's 70% better than any of your other choices. So it's one to think about. You know, it really is. And over the bulk of, you know, I think you need to get a couple dozen trades behind you before you can really evaluate anything. So that's why you have the ability to get in here, go back, you know, and look at some further historical data and kind of test things around until you see, wow, this thing really is pretty cool, you know. So, all right, that's going to be that. Now I need to get over into VectorVest 7 because there's been some really nice, you know, additions there as well. We want to make sure we give some airtime. So some of the new and improved areas and functionality, really three critical areas in the program. There's been some nice additions to Backtester, also portfolios and graphs. So let's do that. All right, we're going to reconnect up here. Let me go get it. All right, so here we are live on the markets. Dow's up just a little bit there, we can see. All right, what we're going to do is first isolate where you can find ProfitLocker Pro in those three areas in the product. So I'm going to come right up here to Backtester to begin, okay? And I've got a backtest that I put together here using what's called recommended stop. Now, recommended stop is trading baskets of stocks with the recommended stop template for each individual stock. So you're not picking the same template necessarily for each one. In some cases you might, but in many other cases, in most cases, you won't. Okay, so it's going to be assigning individual stop losses on your trades. Boy, look at that equity curve. Are you kidding me? My goodness gracious. What kind of stocks do we got in here? So you got Google, Microsoft, Visa, MasterCard, Facebook, Apple, Johnson & Johnson. Well, we know most of those, don't we? Scroll out here to the right a bit, and you can see that it is deploying ProfitLocker Pros, okay? We're going to get more granular look at that when we get into the actual portfolio. If I was putting this backtest together, where would I have found those ProfitLocker ATR templates, okay? And where would I find, most importantly, recommended stop? Because that's the one that assigns one of the 9 to each of the stocks that I'm trading. Okay, so I'm going to come up here to edit. When I go there and I get to the trading system, okay, you can see it says stop criteria calculated. That's going to mean ProfitLocker Pro, okay? I'm going to come here to customize trading system. I'm going to go to the up situation, and there we'll see that under stop criteria, when we buy stocks, we're using recommended stop. This will choose an appropriate stop based on the attributes of the stocks when they're added to your portfolio. Safe undervalued rising stocks will be given looser stops. Risky overvalued falling in price will be given tighter stops. So exactly what we said earlier, right? And it's done on an individual stock basis. Now, when we get in the directory, we've put that right at the top because in reality, unless you really know what you're doing, that's what you want to pick. It does the work for you. Now, if you want to get in there and start looking at ProfitLocker Pro ATR and you want to start customizing things to your own trading, you can do that. But you better know what you're doing, you know? So, am I truly a swing trader? Am I using the appropriate strategy for swing trades? You know, all of those things are going to play a part. So that's where you're going to find them, though. You're going to find them up here. Once you do ProfitLocker Pro, you'll have recommended stop. You'll also have ProfitLocker Pro ATR. You'll also have the ability to customize any of those factors, those 5 factors we went through, to your liking. You know, so, hey, look, if I want to end up with something like a, I'm just want to hold my initial stop until it gets towards the target, well, I can take this transition point and I can just move it down, and anything in between. Okay, so you can really get in here and tune things to your liking if you want to. Again, you better know what you're doing. Right? So each one of those functions is going to have an effect. So this is the ending trail, right? And I can widen that out. I can make the stop loss tighter. I can make it looser and change the target, change the initial stop, all of those different settings. Okay? Groovy? All right, so I'm going to move on from there because once I've done some testing, for sake of time, we've already, running pretty deep here. I'm not going to rerun the back test, okay? But I ran a test using biggest bargains, RT kicker combo, no more than 2 stocks per industry, don't replace for 31 days, okay? And recommended stop, and that's literally it, okay? And that this is the kind of returns that you're looking at. 65% win rate. Now, if I right-click and convert to portfolio, I can convert the current test, which would be the current trades intact. And that way we can get a better look at things and also show you that this can be advantageous for you as well. Once you've completed a test that you like, if you want to monitor it into the future, you're going to get a lot more granularity from portfolios. Okay, so I'm going to open that portfolio now. And when I do, here they are: Google, Microsoft, Visa, MasterCard, Facebook, Apple. Same stocks. We're up as much as 78 on Google, down as much as 21 on Baba, right? Same numbers. We come all the way out to the right. There's where we'll find our ProfitLocker Pro templates. They all are going to say ProfitLocker Pro ATR. There's really no further granularity than that. However, when I start looking at target and stop, we can see some differences. Looks like we're only running a couple of different templates here. That makes sense because biggest bargains, is a pretty high caliber stock. So basically we're vacillating between good strength still in this high caliber stock or, maybe some less than desired technical attributes at times on some of these positions. Now, as we go further across, you'll see, a little bit of some differences with greed. Those are a function of the templates. You'll see the end trails can vary dramatically here. So very wide end trails on Google, that makes a ton of sense. Very wide end trail on Apple, yep, that makes a ton of sense. Johnson & Johnson, Baba, Intel, so on. Also notice the transition. So that's the part where the curve flattens out to accommodate volatility. Some of these, tried to preserve profit very early on in the trade by not transitioning at break even, but transitioning at 5% up into a loosening stop for that interval before you start tightening again. See what I mean? All right, and I don't want to get too technical in this video. Listen, we're going to do a lot of coaching. We're putting together videos right now. We've already got a couple up. We've got one general training on ProfitLocker Pro app. We've got one on the mobile, and we're working on VectorVest 7 now. So all of the training and coaching that you're going to need, you're going to get. Okay. All right. So, but tremendous, right? I mean, this thing's really cool. If I didn't pique your interest, check your pulse, Anyway, yeah, let's kind of round things out here a bit. But look, you can come up to reports. You can kind of check things out there so we can see a transaction log, diversification graphs, all these different things. Let's look at trade history. All right, so our biggest winner was 96% on Google. Looks like we're back at it again with another good trade. Apple was clocked in pretty good, Facebook, Amazon. So anyway, you get the point. Look at our losers compared to our winners, yeah? Look at our losers compared to our winners. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Now look, if you pick a real speculative strategy and you start in a market down, you know, and you do everything wrong, even ProfitLocker Pro is not going to save you, okay? It's when you do it right, it's going to amplify your returns. So just be real. If you're going to get in here and do some testing, you know, you got to be real with what you're doing when you do that. Okay. All right, good. So let's move on then to, one last thing actually, graphs. You know, so I can get in here like with Google. I think we're up a pretty good percentage now. I can right click on that stock and I can go to view ProfitLocker Pro graph. Now you can only do this from portfolios. Okay. If you've got a ProfitLocker Pro deployed, yeah, you can right click, view the ProfitLocker Pro graph so I can see, you know, what's going on here with my stop loss in relation to the stock that I'm in. And you can see it's doing a really nice job of locking profits. And you can do that for any of the stocks that are in there. Okay. You can get in here and start manipulating. You might say, well, it's running away from me a little bit there, you know, so you can change things. You know, I can take my ATR and really, let me just put the pedal down here for a second. You'll watch it move, okay? I can do that if I wish. But again, you're playing with fire if you're not sure what you're doing. And I can't give you any further definition than what we have because it's proprietary, okay? So you know that we're using average true range and you know that we're using fundamentals. And that's as deep down the rabbit hole as we can divulge. But you can see the consequence of your actions, and thereby you can set more effective stops for you emotionally or whatever the case may be, if you wish. Again, I would caution against it in some cases, realizing we put the best stop we could find for you to begin with. Okay? All right, but it's there. And all you got to do is apply to position. Yes, you know, you come back over in, and you could scroll out to the right and see the changes to the settings that you've made. Okay, so something that can be done there. You can see, you know, because you are going to have a stop value, okay, and any changes that you've made will be reflected there if nowhere else. All right, good. So let me go ahead then and really round things out. You can take it on the go. You know, Patrick's put together a great video for the mobile app, so you'll have access to that if you decide to do ProfitLocker Pro and be able to, dare I say, when you're on the golf course, manage your trades. Come on, hit the ball down the fairway, man. but it is on the go, which makes it super convenient if you're in the airport, you know, or if you're stuck with the family in a car in the passenger seat, hopefully. You know, you'll have the ability to do some things when you need to. These days, as busy as we are, listen, trading on the go is a big plus. You can try it now for 14 days. www.vectorvest.com/profit. That's all you need to do is go to www.vectorvest.com/profit. Let me take us there now. And when we get there, always know exactly when to sell. Try it free for 14 days. Put in your first, last name, email, password, you know, and you can get going. Particularly if you're already a member, just sign in right there. Avoid all that extra work. Okay, and you'll be ready to roll. Ready to roll. All right, so with that, guys, I want to thank everybody for taking a look. We're super excited about it, and we hope you are too. If you haven't test driven it already, what are you waiting for? Give it a go. We'll see you again next week right here at VectorVest University. See you then.